For many years, there's been an ongoing battle deciding on which education is the best, public or private. Today, you be the judge. Good afternoon. I am Edwin Hubbard Jr., and I am excited to serve as your host of the Cleveland Pulse podcast, powered by Freedom Dreams Coalition. Today we have a very special guest, Ms. Meryl Johnson, who happens to be a person who has served on the state education board and a 40-year educator, a podcaster, and a phenomenal community activist. And she's also our NAACP education chair. Welcome, Meryl.
Thank you. I appreciate the invitation, Edwin.
Glad to have you. So today I want to talk about all things education. Mm-hmm. Before we get started, if you want to give a background of who you are, where you come from, and why education is so important to you.
Sure. Well, I born and bred in Cleveland, as they say. Very proud to be a Glenville graduate. And my mom was a teacher, which really inspired me to become a teacher. I also like being in charge, so that was a part of it. But went to Cleveland schools and decided that I did want to teach. So I went to Kent State graduate, got my master's at Cleveland State, and then started teaching in 1972. And taught English, 3 years at East Tech, 33 years at Charles Elliott Junior High. Taught 2 generations of children there, which was really fascinating, and retired from John F. Kennedy High School. So I am a true believer in community engagement, true believer in public education. So when I retired in 2012, I decided I wanted a stronger voice to advocate for public schools. I was a director of community engagement for the Cleveland Teachers Union, served on the Cleveland Teachers Union Executive Board for about 30 years. And I got to know a lot of people in the community. So I said, well, this will help me if I want to run for office. So I decided to run, got elected to the State Board of Education in 2016, and got reelected in 2020. And it's a term limited, 8 years. So it'll be about a year next month that I have not been on the board.
You've had an incredible career. It puts me in the mindset when my dad says to me, boy, I forgot more than you ever learned. You know?
I like that.
So, I mean, kudos to you for just the work that you've been and who you've been to our community for so long. In my time getting to know you, I absolutely see you as somebody who fights for education and equality for all children.
Yes. Yes.
Talk about the state of education in Cleveland right now.
Well, in general, in the country, it's horrible because, and not educators itself has not been horrible, but there's people who are working against public schools. And so what that does is it doesn't allow schools, teachers, districts to have the resources that they need to be successful, which is really the problem. In Ohio, in 1991, a lawsuit was filed saying that the way that Ohio funded its schools was unconstitutional. It's known as the Rolfe case. And the Ohio Supreme Court ruled 4 times in 1997, 2000, 2001, and 2002 that, yes, the way Ohio funds its schools is unconstitutional. And it's interesting, Edwin, they said it was because of an over-reliance on property taxes. And what that meant was if you're in a city that like Cleveland, East Cleveland, has a lower property value, children are not going to get the kinds of resources they need as the students who are in Pepper Pike or Orange District or whatever. So that makes it really unfair because your education, the quality of your education should not be determined by your zip code. And that's the way it is now. And that's the way it's going to continue to be because of the state legislators that we have who do not believe in public education.
So in my understanding, I'm a homeowner, and I live in South Euclid, and the levy was on the ballot this time to support our youth, and I was all too happy to support because I knew it was at stake. I knew
I love that. Thank you.
Our children may be missing on school buses and critical pieces of education, and I never felt so invested in the community as I do now. And I understand that property taxes is going to cost me more money, but I'm proud to be able to support my children and the other children that live in my community.
I'm clapping for you. Yay, Edwin.
And
I appreciate that so much.
And I've heard so many people over the years say, you know what, I don't want another levy. And even if you lived in a community, you didn't have young children. I want to talk about why it's so important that you still should support it, even if you are not directly impacted by it.
Right. Because the quality of education is going to determine the quality of our state, the quality of our economy. I mean, everything relies on education. And it's the legislators who have made it necessary for all these levies. Because if they had reacted and actually followed the rulings of the state Supreme Court, then they would have been funding our schools in a way that you would not have to have levies. But it's because of that people have to see levies, because school funding is not what it should be.
So I'm gonna step back a little bit. You know, I grew up in Bedford Heights, and I went to Bedford High School, and right across the street there was Chanel. And I had a decent amount of friends that would go across the street to Chanel or other schools. And I used to always wonder what would be the draw for someone going to, you know, a public school versus a private school, when I felt like my public school was pretty safe, and I thought it was, you know, up to date, in my opinion, at that time. You know, why would somebody choose to go to another school, or why? What's the perception that private schools are so much better than public schools?
Well, I think it's marketing, really, you know, because when you look at the quality of the private school versus quality of the public schools, you know, private schools get a whole bunch of money. And you know, people say, oh, well, it's not about the money. It is about the money. Because when you get more money, then you can have certainly more resources. The parents can afford tutors for their children. Private schools are not as regulated. So it's just the most thing, to me, when you compare, public education is about our democracy, because it's there for everybody. Private schools do not have to accept everybody. They don't have to abide by Title VI, which says that you have to not discriminate, okay? And private schools can pick and choose who they want. And so I think all of that has to do with the quality of the school itself. They can turn away the children who might not be doing as well as the other children. And that has a lot to do with the scores that they have. They're not taking the same tests. They're not taking the same state tests that public schools have to take. So there's a lot of things. People compare, you know, it's not comparing apples and oranges. I say it's like comparing apples and jelly beans, because, you know, it's not even comparing two fruits, because there's so many differences that it's just unfair to compare. But 90% of children in Ohio attend public schools. And so we should have the kinds of public schools that our children deserve.
How do we ensure that our children have the best educational options?
Well, you have to first look at who you're voting for. And we have, and I know this is nonpartisan, but the majority party in Ohio is doing all it can to dismantle public education by taking billions, that's with a B, billions of dollars away from public schools to allow children to leave and go to private schools. Now, little history lesson for the listeners. School vouchers started in Cleveland in 1995. And the claim was that they were to allow poor children, and I'm putting quotes in the air here, to leave those terrible public schools, those terrible Cleveland schools. But what has happened is that when you look at the research, 90% of children who are getting vouchers now are not from low-income families. So it was really never about the education in the past. It was about subsidizing private schools, helping out those private school owners, who in turn will help folks who are trying to get elected. It's all a game, and the children are the ones who are losing out.
So still the rich become richer and the poor remain poor.
Exactly. And unfortunately, who you vote for makes a big difference. It really, really does.
Absolutely. I see a lot of people don't know that, but a lot of people are not also having the conversations needed to have around voting.
Well, that's why, Edwin, we have a really important governor's election coming up. And I'm certainly not going to push any candidates, but people need to educate themselves and see if the candidates have the same values that you have. It's not about party. It's not about name. It's about values. So when you do you have a whole year, we don't have the election till November of 2026. People have a whole year to educate themselves on the governor candidate. Because of gerrymandering, you can't really control who's in the legislature, but you can control who's running for a statewide office. We have a Secretary of State that's going to be up to office. And right now, the folks who are in charge are doing everything they can to suppress our voting. And so you look at who's running, you look at their values to see if they value the vote, and then you vote for the person that you think is going to be the best for you.
Absolutely. And I completely understand that, and I appreciate you raising that up. I think we have to continue to have conversations about voting. I think it has to start in our households, and I think we always need to talk about, what's at stake.
Yeah.
As it pertains to education, where should a person look to find out these types of informative things?
I'm glad you asked. There's some really, really good websites that people can look at. The one that I'm always bringing up at the NAACP meeting, Honesty for Ohio Education, which is a coalition of more than 80 groups now, and the NAACP is a part of that coalition. It's a trusted source. And people really need trusted sources for information. Honesty for Ohio Education, they have a legislation tracker, so you can actually see what's coming up in real time. You can find out when the hearings are, how to write testimony, talking points. So many bills are coming out of the legislature that are not good for our children. And another website is Policy Matters Ohio. That's another good, they're a think tank, and they do research, another trusted source. Then, of course, the NAACP, the National NAACP has excellent resources. The American Civil Liberties Union, these are all trusted sources where you can get real information and not have to worry about somebody trying to fool you. But I think it's important for people to do the research. And I'll give you an example of why. Right now, Edwin, did you know that there's a law that was passed last year that says school districts, they have to create a policy to allow children to leave school in the middle of the day, to leave campus, and to go and have religious teaching. Did you know that?
I did not.
Yes, indeed. And a lot of people don't know that. But the company that started it was called LifeWise, and it started in Hilliard, Ohio. And they actually take children out of class, not core classes, but all classes are important. If you're in band and you're studying for a concert and you're leaving to go to get some religious teaching, you're not going to be ready for your concert. So all classes are important, but they allow children to leave in the middle of the school day to go off campus and have religious teachings and to come back to school. And it's all a part of the right-wing movement to indoctrinate with Christian nationalism.
So whatever happened to separation of church and state, or does that not apply? That's
an excellent question. And, unfortunately, folks are allowed to ignore the Constitution without any consequences. And I'm glad that's why there was a voucher lawsuit, which there's 600 school districts in Ohio. More than 200 districts joined the voucher lawsuit. And the main thing was that vouchers are unconstitutional, mainly because of the separation of church and state. And a judge in Franklin County recently found that, yes, vouchers are unconstitutional, which was a great victory. So, of course, the state's going to appeal, and we may have problems with the Ohio Supreme Court because that's mostly all one party that are trying to dismantle public education, so it may be a problem. But the fact that a judge said, yes, vouchers are unconstitutional was a huge victory.
When you say that the vouchers are unconstitutional, it lends me to believe that this has really been a systemic issue for some time.
Yes, indeed. Yes, it has. Yes, it has.
And what would you say the origin of it came out of?
Well, it's about people who want to. Well, let me tell you. Back when George Voinovich was governor, and I'm just going to deal with Ohio now because it's a national effort to dismantle public schools, but I'm going to deal with Ohio. Back when George Flournoy was governor, back in 1995, the General Accounting Office stated that Ohio was number 1 in the country in the amount of tax dollars going to private schools and number 50 in the conditions of its public schools. Okay, I'm going to say that one more time so listeners can get it. Number 1 in the amount of tax dollars going to private schools in the country, and number 50 in the conditions of our public schools.
Wow. And
I have a letter that I always read whenever I do a presentation where Voinovich said that he wanted to have some of the, he wanted the tax dollars to go to our private schools more than any other state. And that is exactly what happened. And so there's always been a move. Then it was in to benefit Catholic schools. But there's been a move for a long time to dismantle public schools. And it's really unfortunate because it's getting worse. I mean, on the federal level, the president's shutting down the Department of Education. And that was one of his main goals in Project 2025.
If we are to dismantle public schools, what then happens to the state of our children?
Well, uneducated people are very easy to control. And that's what the goal is. You have a whole bunch of uneducated people running around, then you can control them and get them to do what you want them to do. I mean, look at the people who are supporting all this foolishness coming out of the White House. So that's a very good question, Edwin, but we're going to have some folks that aren't educated. And that's why we have to take care of our own, and we have to make sure that we support levies. I know it's difficult. I mean, right now there's a move on. People want to get rid of property taxes because they're so high. And the property tax, 2/3 of the property tax goes to our schools. But it also goes to police, it goes to fire, it goes to libraries, it goes to parks. So if we do away with property taxes, we might as well just kiss our country goodbye or kiss our state goodbye.
So what should we do?
I think the main thing we should do is, I already mentioned, we should be careful who we vote for, and we should advocate. We should find out, go on Honesty for Ohio Education, find out what kind of bills are coming out, and make sure that we contact legislators about these bills, call the governor, ask him to veto the bills that make no sense, and just keep on advocating for our public schools. That is so, so important. And educate yourselves and inform your friends.
So you brought up so many good points, So what I want you to do now is talk to the person sitting at home right now, listening to this podcast, who has maybe become irate and is like, you know what? I need to do something. I need to get involved. Could you give them directions how they can get involved? Yeah,
I think the best way to get involved is, number 1, to go to your computer and go to the Honesty for Ohio Education website. I am just so serious about that because they deal with 3 areas. They deal with State House, with the State Board of Education, and they deal with school boards. And school boards are also, school boards have been called the last line of defense to save our public schools, the last line of defense to save our public schools. So you have to look at who's on your school board, go to school board meetings, and speak up. If they start talking about banning books because they're written by Black people or because they're about LGBTQ, then stand up and say, no, that's wrong. And then be very careful. We just had a school board election, so it's too late for that. But just go to the meetings and let people hear you. Also, encourage students to speak up. The student voice is so important because it's all about them. So when students are sitting there on their phones or playing around, encourage them to do some reading about their own school districts and about what's going on in this country. Because if we don't pay attention, we're going to lose our public schools entirely.
No, those are great solutions. And so for students who want to get involved, you would suggest them doing the research, but then looking at what programs they can get involved in, possibly getting involved with the Cleveland NAACP because we have some great youth programming. But I think the more specific and more urgent request is that parents go to Honesty for Education.
Honesty for Ohio Education.
For Ohio Education. And really look in and understand that what's at stake if you don't advocate on behalf of public education.
It's very important. You can reach every legislators' contact information is on the Honesty for Ohio Education website. Their email, their phone numbers. I just called the governor last week about some property tax bills that are coming out, because the property tax bills that are being introduced by the legislature could really be devastating to our public schools. So people need to just be woke, okay? Because woke is a positive word, all right? They need to be woke and pay attention, because there are folks who are trying to destroy the country that we live in.
Yeah, for sure. Mm-hmm. For those other people, I mentioned that you are the chair of our education committee. For those listeners out there who want to get involved with the education committee, how could they become a part of that?
That's for you to answer. I want them. I would love to have you on my committee. Is it on the website? Is there a way to do it on the website?
You can go ahead and put in naacp.org.
Yeah, there you go.
You can simply request that you want to be a part of the education committee and serve beside Meryl and that great group of individuals. I want to talk about some projects that you all have done, because I thought they were phenomenal, and the honesty for education that you brought to Cleveland over the past 2 years. Mm-hmm. So let's first go back to the first one, when you brought a civil rights activist.
Yeah, Miss Joan Trumpower Mulholland. That was so much fun. There's an organization called the Zinn Education Project. That's another good website to go to, ZINN Education Project. Also, Rethinking Schools is another good website. I'm giving you all these great websites because they are trusted sources. And Joan Trumpower Mulholland is about 80 years old now. She's a white lady. And she was involved in the civil rights movement when she was a teenager. She went to prison, got arrested with a whole bunch of black people who were out there being freedom riders. She rode the buses to make sure that everybody could ride the bus. And Joan, actually, she did a sit-in. There's a famous picture of some black people sitting in a restaurant, and there's a white lady there with blonde hair, and she has a bun on the back of her head. I know you've seen that picture. Well, that's Joan, and she's also a Delta, my sorority sister, the first white Delta that we were able to welcome into our sorority. But it was just great. It's called Teach Truth Day of Action. And it started because of all these censorship bills. And this is in the country. Do you know teachers have lost their jobs because they were teaching about social justice and race?
Wow.
And that has happened in many states already. Now, it didn't happen in Ohio because we had some serious advocacy fighting for the truth. And so it never passed in Ohio. But the Teach Truth Day of Action is a chance for people to come and hear about the importance of teaching the truth about Black history and not banning books and making sure that we are telling the truth to our children in their classes. And so we did it the first time 2 years ago with Joan and her son, Loki. And then last year, we had a wonderful day with 6 different workshops where people could choose which workshop they wanted to go to. But it all was focused on teaching the truth. And we're going to, this year, we're talking about taking a bus ride to Oberlin. Wow. Oberlin is very well known as far as being a part of the Underground Railroad and the Civil Rights Movement. And we want to take a bus trip to Oberlin so folks can find out what's going on there.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So you gave me some great information and give people some great places where they can go and plug in. I have a couple of fun questions for you.
Uh-oh.
I want to know, how do you, so when you're not constantly advocating on behalf of our youth, what does Meryl Johnson do for fun?
That's interesting. I am one of 5 people in the city of Cleveland who still gets the newspaper at home.
Okay.
And they don't deliver it every day. They deliver it 4 days a week. I love reading the Cleveland Plain Dealer. And then I love posting articles on Facebook. That's one of my favorite things to do. Okay. And the other thing is I am in love with streaming, with Netflix and Amazon Prime and Hulu. I have those 3.
What you watching on TV right now?
Well, right now, let's see, what am I watching? Family Feud is one of my favorites. Okay. When I want to laugh out loud, I turn on Family Feud. And now they've made a Family Feud favorites. So I'm watching that. I just finished watching 6 seasons of Justified. Wow. Which was really, really good. Okay. So I love TV and I love reading the newspaper.
My parents would always stop me from watching TV when I was a kid because they'd be like, you need to read a book. But TV can be informative too if you do it the right way.
It can be.
So.
It can be. And, shout out to PBS that the president's trying to get rid of. But PBS was one of my most important pieces of information when I was teaching. Eyes on the Prize. I did lessons after lesson on Eyes on the Prize. So when you talk about TV, there's good stuff. And PBS is one of the good things.
Oh, the
on
reading
TV.
programs. I mean, if you Sesame Street.
Yes.
And so many
Yes.
other phenomenal programs that help literally develop children.
Yes.
Right? I mean,
Yes.
that's so needed.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, that's something that we need to continue to fight for as well.
I agree. I'm a PBS member, and I'm proud to be.
Well, I want to thank you for coming and spending some time and talk to me today.
Well, thank you for the invitation.
I think that there's still so much work to be done, but we can't
leave without pushing my show, my radio show.
I'm absolutely coming back to that.
Okay.
But I want to say I'm encouraged to continue fighting and moving forward and working beside you. And also, yes, let's plug in your show.
Yes, since 2009, I have had a radio show called It's About Justice. It airs every Saturday from 1 to 2 p.m. on WRUW 91.1 FM. Comes off of a Case Western Reserve's campus. And it's a show that I just deal with anything dealing with the community, with justice, with children. I really got the show because I wanted to put a spotlight on young people. So I have interviewed a number of high school students. Matter of fact, I think Saturday I'm going to replay one of my favorite interviews I did with about 6 different students who had gone to, where had they gone? They had gone someplace, I forget where it was, but they actually created some 3-dimensional what do you call them? The false arms?
Prosthetics.
Thank you. I always mess up that word. But anyway, I think I'll replay that interview on Saturday because it's a wonderful interview. But I just really got it because I wanted to put a spotlight on students and on the good things that are happening in our schools.
And since 2009.
Since 2009. Yes.
That's some longevity. I hope we could have that kind of longevity with the Cleveland Pulse.
Yes, it is. But I really enjoy it. I love it.
Awesome. Also, again, thank you for coming on today.
Thank you,
Those
Edwin.
of our listeners, if you're just tuning in for the first time, we thank you for coming out and listening to the Cleveland Pulse. We have real conversations with real people and real solutions. And this show is only going to continue to grow. If we don't see you before the next time we record, I hope you are out there taking care of yourself. And we look forward to seeing you soon. Peace.
Take care, everybody.